And welcome back to Who Would Win. Today's Who Would Win comes to us from Nicholas Nick Thompson, who asked the question, who in a fight, Esdeath or Elsa? Now, at first glance, this would seem like, well, obviously, Esdeath's going to win this. But let's actually take a look and see what they bring to the table. Let's look at Esdeath first. So Esdeath was the leader of the Jaegers, a elite group of Imperial arms users tasked by, the kingdom herself. Now, if you never watched a comic or read A Comic Got Kill, it's a pretty good series. It's one of my top 10 favorites. I don't know if I go that far. It has a complete coherent ending. I know there's a comic Got Kill Zero, I believe, which is like either a prequel or sequel. I've never actually gone out and read that one. But needless to say, she was the leader. She's one of the strongest characters in the series. She's a complete sociopath to the umpteenth degree. Verging on psychotic, and on some exceptions, psychotic. But she is arguably one of the strongest characters in the series, and that comes from the Imperial arms she has. Now, the Imperial arms, I think they said there are like 48 of them, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on a second. Actually, let me look that up real quick, just in terms of them. But the Imperial arms are basically items of not necessarily magical ability per se, but they're also called tegu in the Japanese. Let's see here now. Creation. There are, I'm just looking up. Let's see. First Emperor. 48 of them. Yes. And I don't know if we see all 48 in the series. Now that I think about that. We might actually see nearly all 48 of them. Anyway, so basically they're items of extreme power created by the first Emperor. They all have different abilities, all sorts of things. Some of them have trump cards, which are basically like their, as it said, trump card. You do need to be, in tune to certain Imperial arms to use them properly. Well, Esdeath's Imperial arm is a very unique one. Hers was actually a demon, was basically what's the best way to put it? A blood collection, where is Esdeath's? Hold on, there's this. Demon God Manifestation Demon's Extract. What it was a container of blood from what's known as a danger beast, a very powerful creature in the A Comic Got Kill world. She drank it all, and most of the time when people did that, it would drive them insane and kill them through sheer insanity. However, in this case, that's not what happened. She fully accepted the abilities of it, and what it does is give her immense ice manipulation capabilities. Ice creation, ice manipulation. She can freeze an entire lake in an instant. She can make a giant army of ice clones, although she said that took a little bit of time. She can fly by attaching ice to her body and manipulating it. She can summon giant mountains of ice, like giant icebergs, if you will, from the sky to crush an opponent. She can create giant ice spears to attack people. She can just constantly use ice to a dizzying degree without apparently tiring. Her trump card, if you will, is actually her ability to actually make things so cold that she stopped, because her Imperial arm didn't actually have a trump card to begin with. She created one, and she can basically freeze time by just making things that cold that she actually froze time. Now, those with a resistance to cold are immune to this effect, or at least resistant to it. Like, they might freeze initially, but then unfreeze moments later. But she is not only capable of massive amounts of ice, but she's also a skilled warrior in general. She's a skilled swordsman, hand-to-hand fighter, tactician. She is dangerous. In fact, the only reason she ended up losing, she got careless against one, like Akame herself, who is actually what this series is named off of. Weirdly enough, she's not the lead, though. And her sword, Muramasa, which basically it cuts you and you get a curse that comes and actually kills you. But she ultimately took her own life because that's the way she wanted to die. So yeah, spoilers if you haven't read it. It's a good series. I'm not putting anything against it. It's a good series. So Elsa is, or was, the queen of, oh God, I actually can't remember the name of Elsa's city. But she was the queen of her kingdom up until she left in the second one to be the queen or ruler or protector of like the magical forest or something like that. I can't remember exactly. I liked Frozen 2 more than Frozen 1. But that said, I'm not huge on either of them, to be frank. Like they're fine for what they are, but there are better Disney pictures out there, to be frank. But anyway, she basically was born with ice magic. Unlike other people who kind of like gain their magic through over time or through learning or whatever, no, she gained her ice magic, and she was born with her ice magic, and for the longest time she had no control over it. What was the name of it? Oh, Arendelle, that's what it's called. That's the name of the kingdom. And she had no control over, where she accidentally hit her sister, caused the white in her hair, and nearly killed her the second time around. Eventually, her sister turned to ice. Now, she later gains even more control and understanding of what she is. Apparently, the fifth element was ice, which makes no sense because ice is just frozen water, but whatever. So, she gained more control of that, able to basically turn a Kelpie, a water spirit, into an ice spirit, a horse, and ride on that. She can freeze massive amounts of waves and water in an instant, although it does take a large amount of force to do so. She's capable of walking on salt water, which is actually not easy to do. She's capable of, putting out flames, which would be a natural opposition to fire, or a natural opposition to ice. Sorry. But I think one of the most impressive, she created a giant ice castle. She created the golem. She created Olaf. She created sentience. But I think one of the most impressive feats we've seen from her, and I think it's one that when we talk about power, is actually key to realizing that Elsa actually may have more raw power than Esdeath, is the fact that she put an entire kingdom, an entire near country. Well, we don't really know how far the winter really expanded, but an entire kingdom, which was big, which was a very big man, into an eternal winter. Now, from what we understand, Esdeath has done similar things before, but not to that extent. Like, it was to the point where it was more like she was just commanding the weather to some degree and could get, summon ice a bit more freely that way. No, with Elsa, she was actually able to basically put an entire kingdom, forest, environment, all that, into a perpetual winter, screwing up the ecosystem. She can also create view memories from, freezing like the water and stuff, because water actually has memory and shape. That's what they learned there. But ultimately, the question becomes, who could win in an actual fight? Well, let's put it this way. It all depends on how you interpret both of their abilities. Elsa, at least until she realized who she really was, did seem to have a limit on what she could do with her magic. Because as she got closer to the actual like ice, like glacier or center of it, she was starting to actually feel cold. She pretty much has natural immunity to the cold, or resistance to the cold. But at that moment, she had gone too far and was had overexerted herself, but ultimately overcame that. Blah 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 blah. So, things like Esdeath's time freeze would not work because she has a natural resistance / immunity to the cold. I'd also say because of the nature of their abilities, while it may seem like the Impaler Arms are magical devices, they're actually, as far as we can tell, they're actually not. Magic doesn't really exist. They are supernatural to a degree, but it all seems to stem from the science of this world. So they're not truly magical items, but they mirror magic, I guess, if that's a way to put it. Whereas Elsa's abilities actually are magical. That's why she's able to do things on the level she can do, or she does them, and not seem to feel tired or anything, because it's magic that feels her, not her own physicality or anything along those lines. Whereas with Imperial Arms, a lot of them actually require you to use your wits and physicality, all that. Now that said, sheer power alone isn't probably going to be enough. I'll say this. Elsa can probably throw a casual blast of ice easier than Esdeath can, which is weird to say. But whenever we see Esdeath like throw ice, it's always jagged, walls, pillars, icicles, stalactites, stalagmites, all that. It's all very clunky and not actually very like smoothly flowing. Whereas Elsa's is a lot more like a concentrated mist that super freezes things real quick, or just summoning ice in a similar fashion. So on that regard, Elsa has an advantage. So they might start the fight out throwing ice at each other. Elsa's just been able to manipulate the ice back, and they're kind of going back and forth for a while. The ultimate problem, though, here is Elsa's not a fighter. I mean, don't get me wrong. She's got the conviction of a fighter. Absolutely. But she's not actually a fight. Like she can't go into fisticuffs at all with anyone. She can't pick up a sword and go into a sword fight to the death. She can't do that. Like even Anna, who picked up a sword to help defend at one point, it's like, no, Anna can't do that either. Whereas Esdeath was a beast even before she got her abilities. Esdeath basically would capitalize on the fact that, okay, we're pretty much evenly matched. You might even edge me out on the ice just a little bit. But guess what? I'm just going to wear this like as an ice armor. Comes in, just gets a sword, and starts basically coming in after Elsa. And all Elsa would do is start adding more to the blade, which Esdeath can, manipulate freely. She could just start throwing blades like, willy-nilly, and she's far more psychotic and ruthless than Elsa is. Sadly for Elsa, she just falls short in a straight-out fight. Even though I think she does actually edge out Esdeath a little bit in terms of like sheer ability power, the amount of versatility we actually saw with Esdeath, combined with a psychotic mind, combined with a tactical mind, and years worth of experience on the battlefield as a warrior beforehand, completely makes this kind of a curb stomp in Esdeath's favor. I think Elsa would put up a good fight in the initial confrontation. She'd be able to keep up with Esdeath's ice. She'd be able to fire back. She might be able to manipulate some of the attacks back at Esdeath, which Esdeath would probably be surprised with. But after Esdeath basically gets bored, she's just going to be like, okay, that's enough of that. And just comes in and just starts cutting up basically either just skewers her or whatever, just decapitates her, whatever, because in a Comic Got Kill, you get some gruesome deaths. Like, you get some decapitations, heads on spikes, hearts being sliced apart, disembowelments, the works. So yeah, she would not be kind to Elsa, to be fair, to be moot about it. Yeah, so ultimately, even though I think Elsa would put up a better fight than I think some people would give her credit for, I go Esdeath in this fight. Who do you got, though? Esdeath or Elsa? Who's going to let it go, and who's... I can't recall a catchphrase for a Comic Got Kill. Anyway, I digress. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. I got to do my Falcon Winter Soldier video. So keep your eyes out for that. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you folks next time. Later.